To begin the meeting, will the clerk please take the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Present.
Senator Cano.
Here.
Senator DiPalma.
Here.
Senator Felag.
Present.
Senator Paolino.
Here.
Chairman Pearson.
Here.
Senator Seveny. Senator Sosnowski.
Here.
8 members, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The first item on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 43 by Senator DiPalma. Senator DiPalma, I will turn it over to you to introduce your legislation. And I think you may be on mute, Senator DiPalma.
Thank you. I'm doing extremely well talking to myself. I practiced that quite a bit. Thank you, Chairman. This isn't the first time we've heard this bill. This bill goes back to, I think this would be the 4th year it's been introduced. The first couple of years, the bill was flat out basically, let's go do this. From the conversations that have been had, the feedback that's been received, the discussions that have been had, and what's been looked at in other states, and legislation like this has been introduced in numerous states, probably 60% of the states. Hasn't passed anywhere yet. Only a couple states are really doing something with it right now. And clearly from a COVID-19 perspective, it has certainly put dampers on any legislation that might have come about in 2019. Clearly in 2020, some general assemblies did more than others. It didn't happen really in 2020 either. So hearing all of that, taking that into account, the bill you have before you talks about establishing a pilot, and the pilot would apply to contracts, really IT, information technology contracts, over $1 million. So we're not talking about every contract that's out there. It would not apply to architectural and engineering. And we heard that loud and clear from talking with Director Alvidi and the DOT going back 4 years now. So that language was integrated into this as well. And it's really looking at administration for professional technical services. And what you could think about this, it's about addressing and verifying billable hours for various systems the state will procure with outside contractors. There's some information here. I'm not going to go into the details with regards to reporting requirements, etc. It talks about setting up a pilot and coming more into focus now, given the pandemic, like all of us are, majority of times working from home. Many more people are working remote from the job site they used to be on every single day. And will that change when the pandemic subsides completely? Some of it will, but I think businesses have seen we potentially can have people work remote. Productivity is probably more than it was before because they're working more hours than they were before because they're not traveling. And as we say, instead of working from home, we're sleeping at work, and given what's happening here. But the need to be able to account for and verify billable hours on IT systems, this is what this language in this bill seeks to permit. So it seeks to permit a pilot by December 31st of this year. And somebody say, well, are there companies that do this? Yes, there are several companies out there that do this. Just like I would say, are there companies out there that do maybe not tax preparation software or document editing software? Many years ago, there were many of them. They're probably necked down to a few now. And they vary in capability and range and functionality from those that are very basic to those that are very robust. Where's this technology been used? Various software companies that provide larger scale applications have integrated this technology into their product offering, so it becomes an add-on to the existing product offering that they have. So the pilot, as opposed to doing this from the perspective of let's go full bore on this, will allow us to capture some information. What's good about it, what's not good about it, what needs to change. Should we do more of it? Should we not do any of it beyond the pilot? And there's some concerns, obviously, with regards to information that's captured, with regards to screenshots and other things that might be on the screen. But it also has limitations in there that says you're not going to capture any personal information. Obviously concerned about that as well from the perspective of what's being taken and what's not being taken. There's some challenges and concerns with regards to, and I'm sure we'll hear some of them today because we've heard some of this in the past. I think we can account for this with regards to the information being kept for N number of years, 7 years to be exact, so you can go back and do the audit if you choose. And there's also a requirement and prescription in here that says we as a state aren't paying for this. Basically, you, the entity that has been contracted for $1 million worth of the kinds of services that we would go out with a pilot here, we'll pay for that. It's part of the job of doing business. Some would say, well, at the end of the day, we're still going to pay for it, but it's not the state paying for the acquisition of the technology or the capability or the capacity to provide the functionality in front of us. So think about it from the perspective of, if you remember anything, why is this important? It's the ability to ensure the amount of money we pay for professional IT-related services, billable hours on computer-related stuff, we're actually getting our value for it. We're going to do more and more and more of this over the years to come. We've upgraded some of our IT systems in the area of, with RIMS, Rhode Motor Vehicle System with the DMV, STAR with taxation. We're doing work now with, I think over in the DD area with Fair App. We've done some others. We're going to do a lot more, I think, in the area of automated time cards. I'm not sure we've gotten there yet across the board. So that's what this seeks to do. A pilot was put in place in Virginia. Hasn't started yet, but they put that forward. And in New Jersey, I think most recently, I forgot exactly what year, when it was. Both houses passed it there. They have a conference committee, I believe they have there. They need to figure out how to reconcile the differences in New Jersey. And from what I was told, it was close to being unanimous. I can't say categorically it was unanimous. I don't have the vote tally to say that, but it's clearly being introduced in many states. And I'll end with that. I think the time has come with regards to Rhode Island moving into this next phase of being able to ensure the hours for which we're spending our money, and we're going to be spending a lot of money on this and continue to do that, is spent where it's expected to be, so we can verify to all of our constituents that did the money go where it was supposed to? Yes. So Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over back to you.
Thank you, Senator DiPalma. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator DiPalma, thank you for introducing this. I have a question on, part of your exposition is about the changing nature of work and the type of work that we're going to be contracting out. But we are still approaching compensation for that labor through previous types of labor. And so the type of work that we're talking about more and more is project or contract based. And so does it even make sense to be instituting something that looks at hourly compensation rather than if we enter a contract that's $1 million, this is what we want. We don't want to be billed by hour. We want to be billed by completion of this task or you managing this system. So regardless of how long that takes your entity, we pay you X amount of dollars, you deliver us this product. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is why are we still looking at this from an hourly wage labor perspective rather than a project or a task perspective?
So, Senator, good question. With regards to we'll call it a discrete task. I'm giving you a scope of work. I want that scope of work, and for that scope of work, I'm going to give you X amount of money. Beyond that, we typically do maintenance and we do support. That is billable by hour. It's not billable by when you do this for me in support, you get that for it. So it's a combination of things, and I work on this on a daily basis where there are things that are discrete tasks and there are other things that are best effort and there are things that have level of effort. Tying all that together, I don't necessarily believe all of the contracts we will have will be just for deliver me this product. There are going to be some billable hours in there that you're going to contract for that say, I want this amount of service for that particular contract. It could also be the contract deliverable is given to the state, and then say, I want some updates as it goes on over time. And that's not necessarily going to be discrete based with regards to fix this problem, fix that problem. It's, I want you to you're going to fix problems that I ask you to fix, and I want to ensure that I'm paying for what you're telling me it costs That's all.
Something, Mr. Chairman?
Senator 70.
Senator Acosta's point to his question, there's all sorts of ways you can approach how you pay for work to be done. Kind of what you're referring to in the business where Lou and I live. There's a thing called fixed price contract, and you agree at contract award on how much you're willing to pay for the work that is specified to be done. That certainly increases the risks for the contractor because the work is required to be completed, and when you spend the money's gone, and if the work isn't done, then you're working for free until it is done. But that's a double-edged sword, because what happens quite a lot is that the procuring activity, in our case the state, doesn't have a tight enough grip, a tight enough understanding of what their requirements are when they specify the job. So the contractor at some point comes back and says, oh, well, you never said in the requirements that we had to do that, or that we had to do that in this way. So you end up in a fixed price contract that's draining you dry because there's a series of change requests because your requirements were flawed to some degree. And the contractors know this, and this is one of the reasons why, why they are willing to go into fixed price deals. They know very well, in fact, they know better than you, what your requirements ought to be in order to do a thing. So this has been done many times in the past, certainly in the defense business, and everybody always comes back to a cost type contract because your requirements are not that clear, and you're paying for a workforce to make best efforts to fulfill those requirements, even as they are changing, maturing, growing. Either way, it leads to a lot of money, and at the end of the day, you're not quite sure whether or not you got the best bang for your buck, no matter what direction. Senator DiPalma's bill, that's going to put a pretty tight grip on an employee. When you think about it for a second, you're going to be working for a firm that's signed up to go work this way, where there's somehow an internal mechanism that's taking a screenshot of your computer all day long while you're working. You can imagine the sort of stress that kind of scrutiny continuing on throughout the day after day, to ensure the government's getting. It's kind of foolproof, Anyway, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments from other members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none, we do have several individuals signed up to testify on this legislation. The first is Dorothy Davison with ACEC RI in opposition to the legislation. Dorothy, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Pearson and members of the committee. My name is Dorothy Davison, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Council of Engineering Companies, or ACEC Rhode Island. ACEC Rhode Island represents over 50 engineering and related firms in Rhode Island, working in the fields of civil, transportation, environmental, land development, and structural engineering. ACEC Rhode Island respectfully opposes the passage of Senate Bill 43. Senate Bill 43 is a revised version of a similar bill introduced last year in Rhode Island, and some form of this bill has been introduced in over 30 states over the last 2 years. none of the historic bills have passed because of the security risks associated with the use of the software and storage of the massive amounts of data collected by it, the cost to the state and the consultant using the software, and the fact that it has no real offsetting benefit given its risk. The bill purports to provide oversight of state contractors by using software installed on contractors' computers to track keystrokes, mouse movements, and take screenshots every 3 seconds. It's premised on the concept that all contractors' work consists of keystrokes and mouse clicks. It does not measure things like Teams meetings, field work, collaborations, drafting, and just plain human interaction and exchange of ideas. The security risks associated with this type of tracking software are enormous and obvious. Allowing this software on a computer gives access to all measure of confidential and personal information and makes the system more vulnerable to cyber hacking. Maintaining, storing offsite, and securing the huge amount of data collected by the software is also a security risk and extremely expensive, a cost small and minority firms will have a hard time bearing. Use of the software will actually cost the state more money in administrative costs by requiring it to hire personnel to review and audit the collected data and to monitor and enforce contractor compliance. We understand that the architectural and engineering services are accepted from this version of the proposed pilot program, but once the program is complete, the DOA or any state agency can require its use for all state contractors, including architectural and engineering firms. Thank you for your time this afternoon and your consideration of our position opposing Senate Bill 43.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Are there any questions or comments for Dorothy from members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator DiPalma.
if I may, just to, I just want to clarify, this is a pilot only. If this was to move forward, the General Assembly would have to pass legislation. Number one, as Dorothy indicates, it explicitly exempts engineering architectural firms as a result of conversations with the Director of Transportation. With regards to the cybersecurity side, which I have a little appreciation about, this will not introduce any additional cybersecurity vulnerability over that which already exists from the perspective of your network and what your network allows based on what's in here. But Dorothy, thank you for the testimony. It's much appreciated.
You're welcome. Is there a question that I could answer, or am I finished?
Are there any other questions for Dorothy from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, Dorothy, thank you so much for your testimony tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next to testify is Martin Pierce with Steer Engineering in opposition. Martin, welcome to Senate Finance.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Martin Pierce. I am a small business owner and professional engineer in the state of Rhode Island, testifying on behalf of Steer Engineering, and I am in opposition to Senate Bill S0043. The implementation of third-party spyware software would prevent significant privacy and data security risks for contractors, the state of Rhode Island, and its residents. This software would capture everything, including sensitive and personal information such as passwords and other personally identifiable data, with no means for redaction before being recorded and stored. This creates a significant risk to privacy of personal data, state-owned data, as well as issues with federal regulatory compliance. This software would introduce significant risk and vulnerabilities in networks due to incompatibilities with existing security and data storage policies, as well as creating new access points for bad actors. Currently, there are no industry standards for the number of keystrokes or frequency of mouse clicks in a given time frame that would equate to the amount or quality of work being performed. Our work extends beyond computer keystrokes and involves much more than typing on a computer. There's team collaboration, working table huddles, internal and external coordination meetings, and non-computer-based drafting and designing, including in the process of completing a design. A computer tracker would likely capture only a small portion of work on any given project. Now, I understand this is a pilot program and architectural engineering firms would not be included as written. However, I feel this is a slippery slope and have great concern that future amendments could change this to be in line with versions of a similar bill previously introduced. It is for these reasons that I oppose Bill S0043, and I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, Mr. Pierce, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you.
Next is James Senarini, representing Rhode Island Council 94, in opposition to the legislation. Mr. Senarini is currently not available. We may try him back if we do have time before we consider the legislation. Next for testimony, written testimony only, Leonard Lopes, representing TechNet, also in opposition. And then Hannah Stern with the ACLU of Rhode Island in opposition. Hannah, welcome to Senate Finance.
Hi, thank you very much, Chairman and members of the committee, for your time this afternoon. My name is Hannah Stern. I'm testifying on behalf of the ACLU of Rhode Island. We do oppose this legislation and overall have many concerns about what could be very significant privacy violations which could arise from the implementation of a bill like this and the software that this bill requires. So this bill would require screenshots every 3 minutes. It would allow for the collection of data, which could mean anything from key logging software or tracking incoming and outgoing email. And while it does claim that the software cannot collect any private or confidential information on individuals, for us it's frankly impossible to understand how the conditions of confidentiality with the required software and the provisions within this bill can be reconciled. We just don't think that they can be. So regardless of the methods used, any usage of the software is really bound to put the contractor at an inescapable risk of having serious invasions of privacy. There's really no limitation on the actual abilities of the software, and even the deletion of sensitive information by the state would require the identifying and viewing of it in the first place. So regardless of the intentions of this legislation, the implications of the software are, from our perspective, just seriously invasive and frankly fairly Orwellian. So for these reasons, we oppose this legislation and we urge its rejection. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Hannah. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none, Hannah, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next to testify is Christopher Gilrain, representing TechNet, also in opposition. Chris, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to address this legislation. My name is Chris Gilrain. I am TechNet's Executive Director for the Northeast. TechNet is an organization representing a diverse group of companies in the innovation economy, ranging from startups to some of the most well-known companies in the world, spanning the fields of IT, e-commerce, clean energy, cybersecurity, and many more. I will be brief, as we submitted written testimony of our own, as well as part of a umbrella group of industry organizations. As other folks before me have testified, S43 would require vendors who do contract work for the state to install third-party software that's going to log keystrokes and screenshots of work being performed by the state. As other folks have mentioned, it's not hard to imagine that all of these screenshots would likely capture sensitive state information, passwords, or personal information that has been entrusted to the state. After that work is complete, per the legislation, all of that data would be required to be stored by the contractor for 7 years. That's a huge amount of data that would not only be costly to store, but to protect, as one could imagine that would be a prime target for bad actors. Ultimately, this would increase the cost of the services provided to the state because it drastically increases the company's liability to protect that data. And not only would it increase the cost, but as ACEC pointed out, it could significantly reduce the pool of potential contractors to larger firms that can actually afford to take on that kind of thing. As Senator DiPalma said, this bill is written as a pilot, but a similar program has already been tested in Virginia. They filed a report by the Department of HR Management and Information Technology in 2020 that found that monitoring contractors' activity in this way did not fundamentally improve management, and it specifically said that the specific functions of keystroke and screenshot logging are not useful tools to manage or measure productivity. What they do, as this report found, would be to create a significant new security risk and vulnerability. The same report also brought up concerns about this retention piece that's included in this bill, because you can reasonably conclude that all of that data that is being captured could be considered state data, right? It is pictures and screenshots of things that are happening on a state server by a state hired contractor. But all of this data would then be held offsite by a third party for that required 7-year period. So there could be some legal issues there. TechNet's members understands the need to ensure that work that's being done on behalf of the state is done in a timely and efficient manner. There are a lot of ways to do that without creating significant security risks that we would encourage the committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Chris. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Senator DiPalma.
So, thank you, Chris, for the testimony. So the same approach that companies use today for securing and managing data at rest and data in transit exists. I think you would agree that it exists. Otherwise, anyone who's doing a system for the state, whether it's the, let's say, motor vehicle and somebody's driver's license number and social security number, and doing that would have to be secured somehow. During the development, the systems that are developed will typically use canned data. They're not going to know what they're going to have canned data that they've used and developed in other systems in other states. But the same approach. So if there's not an ability to securely save data in rest and securely transmit data, then that same firm would not be able to develop what they develop, because they need to do both secure data when it's at rest and secure data when it's in transit. So that same mechanism would have to be employed here. So thanks for the testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions or comments for Chris? Hearing none, Chris, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you.
I would like to note for the committee that there are several items of written testimony in your packets, and I misspoke earlier. Leonard Lopes signed up in opposition on behalf of Rhode Island Interactive, and there are also several other letters included in your packets this evening. Next to testify is Natalia Spicker, representing Transparent Business in support of the legislation. Natalia, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairman Pearson and members of the Senate Finance Committee. My name is Natalia Spicker, and I am here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 43. Copies of my prepared statement have been provided. I represent Transparent Business, and I support the passage of Senate Bill 43 and this bill's ability to address the automatic verification of computer-based work and hours billed to the state of Rhode Island. Transparent Business was founded in 2008 and has pioneered the concept of transparent verification of billable hours and developed its cloud-based automatic verification software as an in-house tool to manage IT professionals from all over the world. It was deemed a top people management solution in 2016 by Citigroup, and today it is the official partner of Cisco, Microsoft, HP, Google, Facebook, and ADP. As a result of the crisis, remote work became inevitable and now is the norm. The need for unexpected contractor support increased substantially, as did the uncertainty surrounding how to manage these contractors, the funds allocated to them, and of course, state budgets. Uncertain times like these and the lack of automatic verification software calls for solutions like ours and the ones being discussed today. As part of Transparent Business, I can attest to the efficiency and productivity improvement in contractor work from 15 to 40% when tools like ours are embraced and implemented, because our software can be modified to fit the need of the state and has proprietary functions like a real-time Gantt chart driven by an automatic time tracker, which allows the ability to ensure projects are delivered on time and on budget. I am confident that Tools like this can provide exact verifiability that the state needs to protect its funds. We have provided white label services for companies such as Pinnacle, AT&T, Google, America Móvil, and Marsh & McLennan, who have now integrated their tool into their operations full-time. More importantly, I am a witness to automatic verification software's ability to keep user privacy safe and protect sensitive business content. For example, Transparent Business is built on Amazon World servers, the same company used by Congress to house Central Intelligence Agency and Department of Defense data. Transparent Business is a user-friendly software that tracks keystrokes, mouse events, and even takes screenshots every 3 minutes. Technology like this allows the state the real-time visibility it needs to ensure every single hour is accounted for. We partner with technology giants, like I mentioned, specifically ADP, who is now showcasing Transparent Business to its 650,000 clients and contractors as being compliant with ABS requirements of this specific bill. ADP confirms that Transparent Business is compliant with new software, due diligence, and security requirements of its clients. As a professional in remote work transparency, I not only see and fully support this need for oversight in light of the anticipated $500 million state budget deficit and the challenges facing all states with managing federal COVID monies. There is no better time than now to champion a pilot program in assisting the state in getting back on their feet and saving millions of dollars. Transparent Business and I look forward to supporting and working with the sponsor, legislative leaders, and departments involved in this pilot bill. I invite the opportunity to meet with any and all parties to discuss Senate Bill 43. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Natalia. Are there any questions or comments from the committee for Natalia? Hearing none, Natalia, thank you so much for your testimony this evening. Great. That concludes our testimony on Senate Bill 43. Senator DiPalma, do you have a motion?
A motion to hold, Mr. Chair?
Senator DiPalma makes a motion to hold, seconded by
Seconded.
Senator Cano. All those in favor, I'm sorry, would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon. Senator Chacon. Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny. Senator Seveny, yes. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
8 in favor.
Jamie, I'm yet.
Yep. 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. We will hold that bill for further study. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 44, an act relating to property subject to taxation, volunteer firefighter / emergency medical technician, property tax exemption enabling legislation. Senator Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we begin, I would like to move to indefinitely postpone S44 and bring S44 substitute A before the committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Senator Sosnowski moves to indefinitely postpone Senate Bill 44 and bring before the committee Senate Bill 44 substitute A, second by Senator Seveny and Senator Cano. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag. Senator Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
8 in favor. The sub A is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Senator Sosnowski, would you care to introduce?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This act is enabling, and it would allow municipalities to establish a program providing a property tax exemption to active duty individuals who volunteer services as a firefighter or an emergency medical technician, provided the organization to whom the individual volunteers qualifies as a tax-exempt organization pursuant to Internal Revenue Service. I do want to thank the committee's legal counsel, Mr. Chairman, for working so quickly on the sub-A. And the changes from the original bill to the sub-A, if you look on page 1, lines 8 and 9, the original just spoke to an organization being a 501c3. This would allow any subsection of 501c of the Internal Revenue Code. And the reason for that, I had received comments from a couple of fire chiefs. One, the fire chief of Kingston Fire District, and he had said that their organization is not a 501c3, it's a 501c4. Even though when I looked in the statute in the town of Exeter has a law in place, and they do mention the 501c3 status. So that's where we originally had this legislation, but it would be all encompassing now. The reason I put this bill in, I think it's important to show appreciation to our volunteer firefighters, our first responders, anytime, but especially now as we've been through the pandemic. And I think it's a way, I think some folks don't realize in communities that have totally volunteer firefighters and EMTs, I think some folks don't realize they actually are volunteers. They think most people are paid, even though there are fire district taxes that do pay for the equipment, upkeep of the equipment, and so forth. These individuals are really putting their lives on the line to keep people safe and keep the properties safe and businesses safe. And I just think it's a step that we really should take. And again, it is enabling legislation. It is up to the individual town councils to, if they see fit, to adopt an ordinance to do this. And I'm open to any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Senator Sosnowski. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Felag?
I believe we passed a similar bill for the town of Bristol a few years back to allow those volunteer fire members a sort of step-in or a decrease in taxation. So precedent has been set on this type of bill.
Thank you so much, Senator. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none, there is no one signed up to testify this evening on the legislation. Senator Sosnowski, do you have a motion?
Yes, at this time I'll move to hold for further study.
Second.
Senator Sosnowski moves to hold, second by Senator DiPalma. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny. Senator Seveny, yes. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold that bill. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill number 94 by Senator DiPalma, an act relating to property, conservation, and preservation restrictions on real property. Senator DiPalma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Many of us, probably all of us across the state, have land trusts or conservation groups that do phenomenal work in conserving, preserving, and protecting land for all of us that all of our constituents and residents throughout the state use whether they're in our district or not. The language before you comes at the request of the Quinnic Land Trust. Is supported by the folks at the state level. Both of those were calling from the Quinnic Land Trust, and it benefits the entire state. And why is it important? It's very straightforward. You'll see on line 13 through 15. It's a single sentence that gets added. And the reason it's been added, this is a recommendation from folks, much grander scale as it relates to the conservation and preserving restrictions of conserved land, is that when restrictions or covenants are potentially ambiguous, and that's the context, this will allow the judicial system to be able to say that the conservation or preservation restrictions would take precedence and can be liberally used when it's ambiguous. That's all it seeks to do. Nothing more than that. I think we'll have folks that will be testifying. And this bill was submitted last year. Like many of our bills that were submitted last year, they're being submitted again this year. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's the main reason for why this bill has been introduced, is when something becomes ambiguous or there's an ambiguity, this will allow the conservation or preservation restriction to be liberally interpreted.
Thank you so much, Senator. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay, hearing none, we do have one witness to testify. It is Rupert Friday, representing the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, in support of the legislation. Rupert, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Chair Pearson, members of the committee. This is Rupert Friday. I'm the director of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, which is a state coalition of over 45 land trusts that are working to protect the special places in our communities. And thank you for this opportunity to testify in favor of Senate Bill 94. And we thank Senator DiPalma for sponsoring this legislation. As Senator DiPalma explained, Senate Bill 94 amends Rhode Island's enabling legislation for conservation restrictions. So the legislative intent is clear that the conservation restrictions are for public benefit. This bill reflects language that is used as a clause in many conservation restrictions, stating that they shall be construed in favor of conservation purposes. A little bit of a background need for the legislation. It's proactive and it's based on national discussions about conservation restrictions. In 2018, the National Uniform Law Commission Conservation Easement Study Committee was studying the need to update the Uniform Conservation Easement enabling legislation. And in the end, they decided not to update their model legislation and leave it to states. And the study commission identified a number of best practices, and one was clear legislative intent that the conservation easements are for public purposes. In a couple of other states, legal problems have surfaced when conservation restrictions are challenged in court, and we're trying to avoid that problem in Rhode Island. Senate Bill 94 clarifies that it's state's policy that the conservation restrictions are for public benefit, and we encourage your favorable report on Senate Bill 94. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Rupert. Are there any questions or comments for Rupert? Hearing none. Rupert, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. That does conclude our testimony on Senate Bill number 94. Senator DiPalma, do you have a motion?
Motion to hold.
Senator DiPalma moves to hold, seconded by Senator Seveny. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma. Senator DiPalma, yes. Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny. Senator Seveny, yes. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold that piece of legislation. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 158 by Senator Felag, an act relating to state affairs and government, Rhode Island Livable Home Modification Act. Senator Felag.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is the program that has been very successful the past 3 years. It's the Rhode Island Livable Home Modification Act. This particular piece of legislation and the next piece of legislation, the goal is to allow and encourage individuals to live within their homes. So in this particular program that has been successful for 3 years, the state has authorized up to $500,000 each year to be expended. It's been expended at that amount the first 2 years. This year, it's been a little bit slower because of the COVID aspect. But basically, what we're hoping to do here is to codify the successful program into law. What it basically does is it allows individuals to go through an application process so that they can provide either a zero ramp entrance to their home, a stair elevator, so to speak, remodel their bathroom, provide implementation of handrails, those type of things, or passages for wheelchairs, and the state will reimburse 50% up to $5,000. To be eligible, you have to be 120% of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and medium income of Rhode Island, which is a great amount. It might be up to around 70, 80,000, but it's again, the goal is to provide the modifications necessary to allow individuals to stay within their own household rather than the exorbitant cost of having someone go to a nursing home or those types of assisted living facilities. Each year we probably had about 170 applications approved. The average amount is probably around 3,000 or something to that extent, and of 2,800. But it's been a successful program that I'm hoping to codify into law. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Felag. Are there any questions or comments from Senator Felag? Okay. Sure. Hearing none, the first testimony we're going to have on this evening is from Bob Cooper with the Governor's Commission on Disabilities, speaking in support of the legislation. Bob, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Senator Felag, for continuing to champion this over the years. House Finance asked me the other day, or their fiscal advisor asked me the other day, why we needed to make this permanent in the general law since it's an appropriation each year. And unfortunately, this year has shown me the problem with simply having it in Article 1 as appropriation line, in that because the budget wasn't adopted until, I think, December, the program shut down at midnight on June 30th because there was no legal authorization for the program to continue. That, as Senator Felag mentioned, is one of the reasons that the program hasn't been spending as much and hasn't been awarding as many grants as in past years. I believe the committee also has a handout from the Governor's Commission on Disabilities, and I direct folks to the very last page of the handout. One of the things at the request of Senate Finance when the program first got going was to collect information on what the impact of somebody having their house modified is. So we asked each grantee to have their healthcare person fill out a brief summary of the impact of having the person remain in their home, having made modifications to keep them safe. So the questions we asked, whether there'd be any loss of independence, what was the likelihood of fall, would, without the modification, somebody move immediately into long-term care or soon after? And from that information, we were able to project what the annual savings are from diverting people from nursing homes. According to the Kaiser Foundation, 63% of nursing home admissions become Medicaid eligible. On an annual basis, if you look at the chart on the last page, you'll find that on an annual basis, by diverting people, keeping them in their homes, we've saved the state over $5 million. It's a pretty good return on $500,000. There is one thing I'd like to work with Senator Felag on, a slight amendment. After the very first year, the program became so popular that at a maximum grant of $5,000, we had awarded people that total $500,000 by about February. So for the last 2 years, the commission reduced the maximum down to $4,000, so we could at least serve more people. So I would certainly like to work with Senator Felag to maybe have the language, not a legislative cap, but based on the appropriation each year, the ability to raise or lower that cap. And with that, I'd be very happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Bob. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
Just a comment.
Senator Felag?
I would like to thank Bob Cooper for the outstanding job he does in implementing this particular program. I failed to mention that falls are a major reason why our elderly go to a rehab or end up going to a nursing home facility. And this program is imperative towards allowing those individuals to live in their homes. And Bob and his staff do a thorough job of guiding an individual through the process in terms of the application process, in terms of the eligibility, and ensuring the proper expenditure is taking place, so that the state can have the individual can have its reimbursement. And as he mentioned, it was so successful a few years ago, we almost had to knock it down. We did have to knock down the allotment to $4,000. So again, if we have any extra money in the budget, it would probably be beneficial to us to even increase that amount. So thank you, Bob, for your outstanding job in this program.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Felag. Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Cooper? Hearing none. Bob, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
You're welcome.
Next to testify is Robert Marshall from the Rhode Developmental Disabilities Council, not taking a position on the bill, but is testifying. Robert, welcome to Senate Finance.
Hi, Chairman Pearson and members of the Senate Finance Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on this bill on behalf of the Rhode Developmental Disabilities Council. These modifications are something that benefits people drastically, and also it just keeps increasing the number of accessible units that are available in the market for reuse. We think that's a real benefit too, because the more that we can get out there, the more options it gives to people with disabilities on where they can live. It seems unlikely that someone, after getting down to no step, is going to go back and put in the step because the person doesn't need the access anymore. That's probably going to stay that way, and it means someone can come behind them. It also has a side benefit to a lot of the general population. The UPS guys like it. The people moving couches like it, and people with baby carriages like it. So it's something that we might want to at some point look at taking these certifications and marketing them somewhat. because I think some of the other states have seen that if you market it to the general population, the developers and the rehabbers start just doing it without grants because of the marketability, and people don't realize how much they like it until they have it. With that said, we think that continuing this and adding more units every year is a good thing, and we hope that the Senate moves ahead with it.
Thank you so much, Robert. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, Robert, thank you so much for testifying this evening. Next to testify is Matthew Netto, representing the AARP of Rhode Island, in support of the legislation. Matthew, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Chairman Pearson and members of the Senate Finance Committee. A special thank you to Senator Felag for bringing forth this important legislation to codify the Rhode Island Livable Home Modification Grant. On behalf of AARP Rhode Island and our over 132,000 members in Rhode Island, we are in strong support of Senate Bill 158. The Livable Home Modification Grant Program was established with support of AARP a few years ago, and it serves a vital purpose in helping those older Rhode Islanders who are disabled to modify their homes, including adding wheelchair ramps, chair lifts, walk-in or roll-in showers, and allowing them to age in place in their own homes within their own communities instead of nursing homes. We have seen that due to COVID-19, what has happened in nursing homes, many Rhode Islanders have been taken out of nursing homes. Their families have rethought placing their loved ones in nursing homes. However, they are struggling with the problem of not having adaptive equipment to make their home accessible. Some of the highlights of the Livable Home Modification Program include keeping people in their own home and not nursing homes. It would save the state taxpayer dollars because of savings on Medicaid costs, as Bob Cooper had mentioned earlier in testimony. Also, by increasing its accessible home inventory, these modifications would become permanent assets that can benefit future residents as well. The home modifications can also greatly reduce falls. Falls are the leading cause of injury hospitalizations in Rhode Island, with most of the falls being people 65 and older. Consequently, the Livable Home Modification Grant Program has become a very important tool to many families that will opt to keep their loved ones at home instead of in nursing homes. We implore you to help codify this important piece of legislation that would help Rhode Islanders age at home and within their own communities. Once again, I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none. Matthew, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Next to testify is David Carlin, representing the Alzheimer's Association, in support of the legislation. David, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Senator Pearson, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. I would like to also thank, as did prior witnesses, I would like to thank Senator Felag for introducing the legislation, and I'd like to thank Senator Murray for co-sponsoring this bill. As was mentioned, I'm Dave Carlin from the Alzheimer's Association of Rhode Island, and we will be as brief as possible. But this is I would think, Mr. Chairman and members, a non-controversial piece of legislation, except for obviously the appropriations necessity. But as Senator Felag had mentioned earlier, it's a very, very successful program. And Bob Cooper is absolutely right. It does need to be enacted into statute or enacted into law so that should we have an unnecessary and unfortunate situation that nobody could predict, we at least have the backup of the law. But this legislation, from our point of view, is great overall, but very specifically, Mr. Chairman and members, as you know, it keeps people in their homes. And in the case of those who are living with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or other related dementias, this particular legislation, along with other bills, will keep them as long as possible in either their own homes or the homes of the caregivers. And unfortunately, Mr. Chairman and members, the rate of those or the number of those living with the disease in Rhode Island is only increasing. We've got about 24,000 Rhode Islanders now living with Alzheimer's or a related dementia, and thousands of those folks are being cared for at the home. So the legislation has a very specific provision that allows for the installation of a permanent home monitoring system for those living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. And this is awfully important for those caregivers who are not able 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to have an eye on the person living with Alzheimer's. This has a monitoring system provision, which in our opinion is, as Senator Felag again said earlier, very, very successful. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time, members. I appreciate your time, and the association would certainly appreciate including this in the fiscal 22 budget. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Are there any questions or comments for David from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, David, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That does conclude testimony on Senate Bill 158. Senator Felag, do you have a motion?
Motion to hold for further study.
Senator Felag makes a motion to hold, seconded by Senator Acosta.
Second.
And Senator DiPalma. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon. Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Chacon, yes. Senator DiPalma, yes. Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson. Senator Seveny. Senator Seveny, yes. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I do see that we do have Senator Coleman with us this evening, and so I'd like to actually move two bills at the same time, if that's okay with both Senator Coleman and Senator DiPalma. We have many of the similar or same witnesses to testify on those pieces of legislation. So I'd like to bring forward Senate Bill 229 by Senator DiPalma, an act related to taxation, real estate conveyance tax, as well as Senate Bill 365, an act relating to taxation, the real estate conveyance tax, open for hearing. Senator Coleman, do you want to kick us off with introduction of your legislation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm very pleased to come today to talk about Senate Bill 365. I'm especially grateful to committee members who are co-sponsoring it, including Senators Cano, Seveny, Acosta, and Murray, who isn't here. So there's a housing crisis in Rhode Island. We all know this. More than 35% of households in our state spend upwards of 30% of their income on housing. This is an unsustainable level. It leaves too little money for food, not enough for clothing, transportation, other essential needs. Among households that are renters, the number of people who are cost burdened rises to 49%, so almost half. It takes an income of $66,000 approximately to afford an average two-bedroom apartment here, but our median renter household income is just a little bit above $34,000. So our housing supply is simply unaffordable for our population. This bill comes out of the recognition that we need a dedicated and consistent funding stream in our state budget that provides builders and developers with the confidence that they need to plan for low and moderate income developments and to support renters and first-time home buyers. This bill creates a dedicated revenue stream for affordable housing, so one that is not tied to the fluctuation of the budget, it's not tied to bonds. This is not a new idea. It was included in former Governor Raimondo's last budget. The bill works by adding a small additional tax onto high-end real estate transactions, so over $500,000. It dedicates the money that's collected from that tax to two things. The first is to supporting renters who are struggling, and the second is to building new houses for low and moderate income Rhode Islanders. The estimation is it's going to produce about $8 million a year. And we cannot simply reallocate money from elsewhere within our struggling budget to pay for affordable housing. You know, this is something, again, that we've discussed, but I feel strongly that we need to be generating new revenues as part of an overall commitment to a fairer tax structure and to meeting the housing needs of the state, which, as we know, are extreme. The real estate market's doing well, the wealth gap is growing, and COVID has played havoc with people's finances, meaning that the need for safe and affordable housing is as urgent as it's ever been. I have some numbers that I can offer if people want, and that said, I'm going to be requesting that the committee hold this bill tonight. There are some issues still to be worked out with language, including, very importantly, a drafting error. So I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Senator Coleman. Senator DiPalma, would you like to introduce Senate Bill 229?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to follow Senator Coleman in what she presented with regards to the housing piece, because she laid the foundation, no pun intended there, on housing with regards to the need for why this is important. The only one piece I do want to add, if you all remember the voter guide that we all received in the mail probably a month ago with regards to the bond that was on the ballot, all the bond measures passed this past Tuesday, March 2nd. We had a bond ballot for $65 million general obligation bond to improve housing affordability and support community revitalization efforts. I'm reading right from the description of it. Well, when we think about that, and we've all been in the Senate or other areas, it requires the action of the General Assembly on a pseudo-regular basis to put a bond before the voters for housing, for affordable housing, amongst other things. What we've seen over time, and if we think about what we've done in the state of Rhode Island in the General Assembly over the last 12 years, we've put in place sustainable funding models for many things. What's one of those? I'll start with thinking about RIP the buses. We used to go out for bonding on RIP the buses. We pay the bond off in 20 years, and the bus will last 13 years. 7 years. So the bus turned into paper clips and key punch or something. I don't know what they turned into after that. Paper clips and nails after that. Similarly, with regards to, and we needed to do it again now because the money wasn't there, roads and bridges. We initially put in place the Infrastructure Trust Fund, followed by roadworks. Well, we haven't really gone out for bonding for infrastructure. Why? Because we put in place a dedicated funding stream to address those. And a good portion of that, $70 million, $70 million, came from general revenues. The vehicle registration fees, vehicle inspection fees, and driver license fees. All of that, prior to that, equates to about $70 million. $70 million annually now was into the general fund, now goes towards transportation. We also increase the fees for registration, driver's license, etc. But at the same time, that money went directly to pay for our roads and bridges, which we were dead last in the country, even behind Alaska. Enough on that. So what we put in place, somebody said, well, why did you go out for bond the other day on that? Well, because of challenges with COVID-19, amongst other things. Well, if we think about the same thing here, with regards to, and we would go out to bond $80 million for those transportation issues, and we pay back over 20 years $120 million. Well, if you remember, you probably have it all memorized. When we're going to go out and borrow that $65 million tomorrow, or next week, or whenever it is in the future, the interest on that, plus cost of issuance, is almost $40 million. We're going to pay back just shy of $105 million to borrow 65. Based on what Senator Coleman put forward, what we're looking to put forward here very quickly is to establish a dedicated funding stream. So this one here looks at existing funding for housing. There's also an error in this bill. I'll call it out, and I think folks who testify will call it out as well. And it's an error on my part. When the bill came back, I checked it. It's the right language in the wrong place. So I take responsibility for the language that you have in the bill here. So if you look at the bill on page 205, line 5, where it talks about the distressed community relief program. And then it says, instead of a sum of 30 cents, it says a sum of 90 cents of the $2.30 of stamps. That should be moved down to line 7. And it should be associated with Housing Resources Commission to address affordable housing related issues. And as it even says in there, to construct and rehabilitate affordable housing as defined in Rhode Island general law, that's specified there. In summary, what would this do? If we took the 30 cents a couple of years ago, that was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4 million. If you think of what's transpired in the housing market in Rhode Island, sellers have really made up over the last year. Really, the housing market in Rhode Island has gone up again and again and again. From what I heard, that was probably in the $6 million range. What would this do? Instead of being 4 or 6, it would be 12 or 18. So imagine that. And instead of having $4 million or $6 million annually that comes from the 30 cents, multiply that times 3. I did that quick math. 6 times 3 gave me 18. $18 million would go towards affordable housing on an annual basis. Probably still not enough, but this money, where does the money go now? Some of the areas that are listed here, but we need more in the affordable housing area. This would do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Senator DiPalma. Are there any questions from the committee for either Senator DiPalma or Senator Coleman? Senator Cano.
Thank you so much to both for putting these so important piece of legislation, as it hasn't been a secret. I think affordable housing, based on what both of you had stated, is a priority, and it's a priority now. It was before COVID. It has shown a lot of inequalities after COVID, and how important it is that we take care of that stream of revenue. I am a co-sponsor in Senator Clement's bill. We do know that the communities that we represent, such as Pawtucket, is a community that highly needs this stream of revenue, and we do know that it is important to know where it comes from. So really appreciate that you have worked hard in this bill with many groups and all the advocates. And I just want to say to both of you, thank you for thinking about the importance of dedicating a fund such as that. So for the future, we make sure that we take care of the importance of making sure that working families in Rhode Island are able to afford a need, which is shelter, right? So we need to make sure that that is a priority, continue to be. So I just want to say thank you to both of you, and really looking forward to working towards changing the language necessary so we can get to the goal here, which is not only make sure that we get some revenue to take care of the issue. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Cano. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Seveny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to make a point that the housing crisis, has there's many implications to it, but perhaps the largest one is just the overall economic impact on the state and the dire straits that we're really facing here. This came up as a topic at the Hassenfeld Institute Economic Forum that was held out at Bryant last month. And I got to sit through that, and there were a couple of economists, Drexel University, Edie Tibaldi from Bryant, Paul Dion, Mike DeVies. There were a bunch of people, and they were all in agreement on one really compelling issue related to housing and the implications of not being able to offer affordable places to live for the population of Rhode Island. We are losing our workforce, and according to the census data that they had quoted, since the last census 10 years ago, Rhode Island has lost more than 30,000 working age people, ages 25 to 55, They've left the state and gone somewhere else. And that is just unsustainable in terms of our economic well-being, our growth. And, you know, it all leads to the saying we hear all the time that when a recession comes along, Rhode Island's first in and last out. Well, this housing problem that we have bears greatly on that circumstance, and we have to find a way to fix it. If for no other reason, just so that when our kids grow up and get jobs, they can get jobs in Rhode Island and stay here and find a place to live close by. My two kids live in Philadelphia. You know, they'd love to be back here, but they're not. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Senator Seveny. Any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. All right, we're going to open up testimony on both Senate Bill 229 and Senate Bill 365. The first person that we do have to testify this evening is Jennifer Hawkins, representing One Neighborhood Builders, signed to testify in support of Senate Bill 365. Jennifer, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you. Dear Chairman Pearson and members of the committee, I am here today to support Bill number 365, an act relating to taxation, the real estate conveyance tax. I just respectfully request that the committee consider some changes that I will describe shortly. So as a state, Rhode Island must find ways to vastly increase the supply of affordable housing and diminish demand for low-income housing through wage growth and increased opportunities for residents. I applaud the bill sponsors for appreciating this intersection. I'm thrilled that this legislation calls for a portion of the state's real estate conveyance tax to go to a newly established housing production fund. On behalf of One Neighborhood Builders and other CDCs, I give my sincerest thanks to Senator Coleman for her recognition of our state's dire need for more housing. A reliable funding stream for the production of affordable housing is essential if we are to build the full range of housing options that are needed to attract businesses and remain economically competitive. In addition to being a developer and owner of over 450 affordable apartments, One Neighborhood Builders is the convener of the Central Providence Health Equity Zone. The CPHEZ brings together residents, community organizations, health professionals, and others to address root causes of health disparities. We are also the backbone organization of the Central Providence Opportunities Initiative. Its aim is to increase economic resiliency and opportunity in 02908 and 02909 Providence zip codes. In short, we work to create opportunities for residents, and the development of housing is a key factor in improving people's lives. We are in constant communication with our neighbors who rightly demand improved local and WMBE hiring results. Unfortunately, too often our best efforts do not result in achieving our ambitious goals. It's not for lack of will, but often due to a lack of system capacity. I understand that apprenticeship is not synonymous with union labor, nor does it require the payment of prevailing wage. Apprenticeship is one of the very best mechanisms for creating living wage employment opportunities for local and historically disenfranchised residents. In recognition of this really important distinction, I believe it is therefore essential that reference to Section 3713 be omitted or clarified from the bill's language. Furthermore, in support of the spirit of the proposed legislation, I respectfully request that the committee consider the following changes. Provide 24 months for this legislation to go into effect in order to build the pipeline of qualified building trades apprentices and enable more contractors and subcontractors to register apprenticeship programs. Consider clarifying the language that a development project is triggered when $5 million in construction costs, not total development costs. And I would ask that you might consider language to support training and technical assistance entities to undertake the required professional development to build the worker pipeline and conduct outreach and support to help the construction industry register apprenticeship programs. I also would want to take this opportunity to support the Senate Bill number 229. Thank you, Senator DiPalma, for proposing legislation to increase the transfer of conveyance tax to construct affordable housing. Thank you very much for listening to my testimony tonight.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Acosta.
Thank you for your testimony. I have a little bit of clarification on your point regarding apprenticeships. So it's that people from underrepresented backgrounds could use that as an avenue to break into these professions. But you're saying, as such, they should be willing to be paid, or we should be okay with paying them less than the prevailing wage because of the promise of future wages? Is that right?
So apprenticeship requires wage escalation, right? So as you obtain more credentials and competencies, there has to be verifiable wage progression. And I think that that's very important, and I think that apprenticeship provides a first step for individuals to enter the building trades as well as non-traditional careers. I think that that's really important, and but I don't believe that apprenticeship is only for signatory contractors, that there are non-signatory contractors that have registered apprenticeship programs, and I would love to see the expansion of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Acosta. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, thank you so much, Jennifer, for your testimony this evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Next to testify this evening is Courtney Nicolato from the United Way, signed up to testify in support of Senate Bill 365. Courtney, welcome to Senate Finance.
Chairman Pearson, thank you so much, and members of the Senate Committee on Finance, thanks for the opportunity to be here. You know, I want to share one number with you that is incredibly powerful, and that's 98,342. That is the total number of housing-related requests that we received through 211 in 2020. I'd like to tell you today that that is remarkably bigger than it was prior to COVID, but that's not the case. Housing-related concerns and the amount of Rhode Islanders who are at that level of crisis is way too high. And that is, and we know that, it's because housing affordability continues to be a challenge for so many. This data tells us that Rhode Islanders continue to struggle to pay for their housing and recognize the need for more affordable options. And while the housing crisis existed well before COVID-19, the pandemic has done nothing but further demonstrate how critical it is to have a home. Our home became our offices. Our home became our schools. Our home became our places of worship. Our home became our places to heal. Currently, 40% of Rhode Islanders are cost burdened when it meets the housing cost, and this will continue to rise because of the lack of housing stock. Affordable housing is a critical component to our larger economic development strategy, which mentioned earlier, to strengthen our Rhode Island economy. Our state cannot succeed without adequate housing for our community and workforce. Additionally, it is projected that in a study by Roger Williams University and Housing Works Rhode Island that our state needs to add as many as 40,000 new housing units over the next decade just to keep up with the state's changing demographics. We want Rhode Islanders to thrive here. We also want Rhode Islanders to stay here. That's why United Way of Rhode Island has been the lead funder and convener in the successful 2021 Yes on 3 campaign, which netted 65% of voters who approved a bond for $65 million to increase housing production. Housing is a top priority area for the United Way of Rhode Island. And through our work, we know investing in affordable housing has a direct positive impact on the well-being of all of those who live and work here. We strongly support Senate Bill 365 by Senator Megan Kalman. I know that today you may hear opposition about certain parts of this bill, but I truly believe that most of us are in agreement about one thing. Rhode Island is in a housing crisis and needs a dedicated funding stream for affordable housing. We can also all agree that we want to change the sad reality that Rhode Island is the only state in the entire Northeast not to have a dedicated funding stream for housing. As an example, Rhode Island per capita invests about $11 per capita in housing. Massachusetts invests $97 per capita in housing. So I'm here, Mr. Chairman, and I stand ready, and United Way stands ready. And if it's helpful to you or your committee to bring stakeholders together to work out ironing any of the details, there is simply way too much at stake for Rhode Island as we struggle to see ourselves out of this pandemic. We're committed to finding a way forward in any way that the committee needs. We respectfully request that you support Senate Bill 365, and we urge that you continue supporting building housing here for all Rhode Islanders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Okay. Hearing none, Courtney, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you so much.
Next to testify this evening is Melina Lodge, representing the Housing Network of Rhode Island, testifying both in support of Senate Bill 365 and in support of Senate Bill 229. Melina, welcome to Senate Finance.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Melina Lodge, and I represent the Housing Network of Rhode Island, which is the trade association for 17 community development corporations and nonprofit housing developers across this state, representing somewhere in the ballpark of 15,000 affordable housing units. So first off, we'd obviously like to give our thanks to Senator Coleman and Senator DiPalma for Bills 365 and 229 and their acknowledgement of the absolute importance of the state establishing a dedicated funding stream to support housing production. It is extremely challenging, as grateful as we've been for the bonding, to produce a robust pipeline of affordable homes following a bond cycle rather than having continuous funding sources. And thank you so much to Senator Seveny and Senator Cano for their supporting testimony. And my colleague Jennifer Hawkins, I think, articulated some of the concerns that we have with the labor requirements within the bill. And we've been in contact with the bill sponsor to sort of figure out how we can work through those constraints with our partners in the building trades and the Builders Association as well. So generally, I just wanted to voice our support and say, you know, we really need this dedicated funding stream for the low-income Rhode Islanders who are facing astronomical housing costs every day with very few options, and this will help us address those needs. And looking forward to working with both sponsors to work through the bills. Thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Melina. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, Melina, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next to testify is Dave Caldwell with Caldwell and Johnson and the Rhode Island Builders Association, testifying on Senate Bill 365 in opposition. Dave, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and I am very happy to be here tonight to talk about yet another tool in the toolbox that Senator Kalman's bill will be helping to produce housing in the state of Rhode Island that we desperately need, and we here at the Rhode Island Builders Association are pledged to work fully with you towards that end. I am also here as a master carpenter who has never spent a day in an apprenticeship program. I learned the traditional method from father to son and grandfather, and the Rhode Island Builders Association has identified a great amount of talent in the community of Rhode Island, often that wasn't born here, has arrived here from elsewhere, but is well versed in the construction trades. Historically, those don't change elsewhere in the world in terms of the trades being required to use. We have identified a number of barriers, unfortunately, that exist in the state that make it difficult for small contractors to grow and succeed. What we would very much like to make sure is that this housing that is desperately needed in our community is being built by the members of that community, and that those small contractors have the ability to grow and thrive. And we've got a number of programs at Reba that are helping that, mostly run out of our new facility in Central Falls. And we're very proud of the fact that we're helping to develop some emerging contractors. So at the end of the day, I'd like to make sure there's enough tools in the toolbox here to make sure that this work is being done by our smaller contractors in the communities in which we need to build that housing. And I'd just like to make sure that's part of the dialogue here moving forward as we push this issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none. Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next to testify this evening is Johnny Levia, representing Heroica Construction, testifying in opposition to Senate Bill 365. Okay. The committee, just bear with us for just a moment. Next to testify this evening is going to be Bob Baldwin, representing himself, and R.B. Holmes, also signed up in opposition to Senate Bill 365 by Senator Coleman. Bob, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I concur with Dave, my predecessor, that we applaud the need, and the committees and the bills being introduced we're discussing about to address the chronic housing shortage in the state of Rhode Island, particularly for certain segments of the population that desperately need it. But I'm here, unfortunately, to testify in opposition to 365. And in this regard, this bill actually has two parts, one of which is a carry forward of last year's bill, which created a dedicated revenue stream, which we support and did last year. We might disagree with the tax method and think that they need little amendments to that. But we also do agree specifically with the dedicated restricted account, which is in this bill. However, this particular bill added a second part to this, and that's the application of commercial work rules to residential construction. And the two of these just don't mix. Adding the second portion to this, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, actually is self-defeating to the intent of this bill. And instead of creating more housing, which we desperately need, will, as written, decrease the amount of housing due to the cost structure and the issues that are in this that create roadblocks to small and mid-sized companies being involved in building this residential construction that we so desperately need. So in regards to the revenue stream, we support that. But in regards to application to Section 3, we specifically and categorically oppose that for a lot of reasons. Number one, the application of public works to residential means that Davis-Bacon and all the work rule requirements of that come into play. That will not only add 25 to 30% of cost structure to each project, but also produces a level of burden on the small and mid-sized companies that we want to be building this residential construction, and makes it prohibitive for them to be able to build and participate in building this. And at the same time, while as Vice Chair of the Workforce Development Commission, the committee that we have at Reba, we strongly support the training and bringing people into the trades with both pre-apprentice and apprenticeship training. The requirement that anybody to participate in this has to have an apprentice program, again, puts roadblocks in place for the mid-sized and small contractors, prohibiting them from getting involved and participating in this work. Quite frankly, we believe that these two issues should be separate. If we would like to talk about apprenticeships and other issues and commercial work rules, that's fine. That's a conversation to be had. We should have that separately and separate from the dedicated revenue stream that we so desperately need. We look forward to working with the sponsors for the changes, and we look forward to working with the committee to do the same. I'll gladly take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Bob, for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Senator Seveny.
Mr. Chairman, so I've heard a couple of times, or at least I think I'm hearing some concerns related to the wages that one would have to pay under a public works kind of a setup where prevailing wages are required. Is that the issue that you're talking about, sir?
Senator, that's really not the issue. It's the work rules and all the other applications that come involved with it. In reality, sir, right now in residential construction, the wage rates are fairly comparable, believe it or not. Talent is extremely hard to get, regardless of what segment of construction you're working in. So the wage rates, in some instances in residential right now, are even greater than what you see in some of these other areas. So that's not the issue primarily. No, it's all the work rule requirements that drive a lot of cost to this, as not just the wages or benefits in any way, shape, or form.
All right. Okay, I think I'm kind of following. So there's administrative overhead that comes with some of this stuff that you're looking to avoid, because that's going to leech off some of the funding for stuff that doesn't result in a new house for somebody.
Right.
Okay.
There's reporting requirements. You have to literally have dedicated staff to take care of the reporting requirements, which doesn't do anything to get the house built. There's a layers of stuff that gets added to this.
I got it. Let's get back to the wages. That's what I'm primarily interested in. I'm interested in the prevailing wage, and can you give me some examples of what comparable means in your world? How close are you to prevailing wage for those tradesmen, carpenters, and electricians, and all these folks that are going to be involved? How close are they being paid to a prevailing wage?
There's different phases and tiers of competency, which are in both prevailing wage structures and in non. And the wages are commensurate with the level of experience. Journeyman when it comes to journeymen, for that matter, they're almost identical, in some cases more. So they're extremely comparable. And the benefit packages with 401k plans and other things that we provide out of necessity to be competitive are also very competitive.
So I mean, I'm not sure that we can do any of this, but maybe within the realm of possibility, if we could do something that guarantees a prevailing wage that apparently isn't going to harm the business base because you're already there. If we could find a way to ensure that the people doing the work are getting that prevailing wage, at the same time avoiding some of the administrative overhead that comes with the rest of the program, you'd be okay with that?
Well, again, Senator, we'd like to work with the sponsor and everyone in dealing with the specifics of this.
Senator Seveny, your audio appears to have cut out.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Your audio cut out there for the last 20 seconds or so.
All right. Yeah, I mean, is this within the realm of reasonable possibility? Prevailing wage and avoidance of the administrative burdens of the other parts of the public works program?
Well, again, Senator, we'd like to work with the sponsors on the verbiage and how we can come to accommodation to deal with these issues without getting specific at this specific point in time.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is two things. You're telling me that you're close to prevailing wage, and then you're telling me, but not so fast, we'd have to look at the specifics. So I would sure like to see more on that, because, you know, I want to make sure that the people who are building these houses are being paid enough to be able to live in them, too. Fair enough?
Yes, sir. And we are as well.
Chairman.
Thank you so much, Senator Seveny. Are there any other questions or comments for members of the committee for Bob Baldwin? Hearing none. Bob, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you. Next to testify this evening is Philip Tedesco, representing the Rhode Island Association of Realtors, in opposition to Senate Bill 365 and also in opposition to Senate Bill 229. Philip, welcome to Senate Finance.
Good afternoon, Chair Pearson and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening. I'm Philip Tedesco, the CEO of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors. Let me begin by thanking the sponsors of both bills for addressing housing. I speak in support of S229 and request you take no action at this time on S365. Realtors across Rhode Island appreciate your commitment to improving access to home ownership and affordable housing. I cannot stress enough how important housing is to our economy. In 2019, the real estate industry accounted for nearly $12 billion, or 18.2% of the gross state product. And for every property transfer, almost $90,000 is spent in the local economy because of that transaction. We're concerned that Rhode Island lacks a long-term vision to address housing needs at all levels. As you can see in my written testimony, Rhode Islanders from every region in our state are already struggling to afford the median-priced home. According to statewide MLS, the median price of a single-family Rhode Island home has increased 67% since 2010. Currently, more than one-third of Rhode Island households are cost-burdened and spending more than 30% of their household income on housing, and in some cases, severely cost-burdened, spending more than 50% of their earnings on housing. According to a new study, Rhode Island ranks 42nd for annual taxes on homes priced at the state's median value. Another recent data point ranks us 146 out of 174 in terms of affordability. Reynon has supported the concept of creating a dedicated revenue stream to fund housing during the last 3 legislative sessions. In fact, a recent poll conducted by our association revealed that 6 in 10 Rhode Islanders say they favor using all revenue currently generated from the state's real estate conveyance tax to fund housing programs. Yet Rhode Island only invests 13% of the revenue that is generated from the transfer tax. That is why Reynon strongly supports S229, which would require the state of Rhode Island to fund affordable housing using the full state allocation. In terms of S365, first, with a median home price of $334,000 currently, a $500,000 home is not, quote, high-end real estate, and this is, in fact, a new and additional tax. Last year, the governor's budget established lofty revenue targets based on the conveyance tax increase proposal, which only projected the production of 250 new units per year. According to a 2016 report published by Housing Works RI, more than 30,000 rental units of affordable housing will be needed by 2026. So even during the best of the economic times, this new tax will fall far short of fulfilling Rhode Island's affordable housing needs, creating just 1,500 units of the required 30,000 units in the next 6 years. Additionally, Reynon is concerned that tying the housing trust fund to economic market conditions may reduce the reliability of this revenue source. These one-off proposals will not create the holistic approach and production that is necessary, and their impact on the real estate market and supply are unknown, which is why our association requests to work with you as partners. We respectfully ask that the committee press pause on S365 and reconvene the Senate Special Commission on Housing, where we can work together and create the holistic approach on creating housing affordability and opportunities in our state with a more well-researched, comprehensive platform and solid foundation. It is also our hope that the state begins to budget responsibly and listen to Rhode Islanders who want more of their current tax dollars invested in housing. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon.
Philip, thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Seveny.
Thank you, sir, for your perspective on the transfer conveyance taxes and such like that. I mean, you know, when we have circumstances like this, I always like to just pick an example and run down it and see what does it really mean? What are we talking about here? So I picked a $750,000 home, just for the heck of it, and ran through what this tax change would do to a buyer and seller. And what I came up with is that the conveyance tax on $750,000 under law as it exists today would run about $3,400 in conveyance stamps in the tax. And if we adopted this law, which doubles the tax, I mean, you're absolutely right. This is a tax increase for all that cost over $500,000. The overall tax would go to $4,600. You know, but you'd be paying a portion of that anyway. So all I see is that we'd be asking someone who can afford to buy a $750,000 home to pay an additional $1,200 in taxes. I don't see that as a huge leap in terms of additional taxation, in terms of additional burden on someone who can afford a home like that. And that's really what we're talking about. You know, and of course that delta gets smaller the closer you get to 500,000. So I'm not understanding where the real burden is in this bill, but I do see the revenue proceeds that will flow into our housing coffers should this pass. I'm not seeing an economic problem, you know, or a real harm to the state's position in terms of affordability.
We're particularly concerned that the state may have no choice but to lower that threshold when they're not seeing the revenues that were anticipated. And thus, it's well intended, but I'm not sure it's going to solve the problem. I mean, when you look at the deficit that was already presented in terms of what we're looking at, we would very much like to see the 229 move forward, see what kind of pool we're working with, as well as look at more reliable forms of revenue rather than an increased tax on a transfer.
Worrying about a circumstance that isn't a part of the bill and may or may not occur. I mean, as you pointed out, and as we all know, housing prices do continue to rise. Certainly down here on Aquidneck Island where I live, that's the case. So once again, I don't see this as a burdensome additional tax. I think the people who are looking at housing in that neighborhood can quite easily afford the kinds of change we're talking about with this bill. Anyway, that's my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sebeny. Senator Acosta.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. I have a little bit of issue with the way that you set up the problem as a bit of a straw man. So you're saying even if we do this, we're not going to build enough to meet the demand. But your suggestion is that we don't do anything and wait by meeting, setting up a commission, which would exacerbate the demand. And the reason why I bring this up is because I actually think you have, or your industry has, an incentive to keep the status quo, right? As the demand continues to grow and the supply is low, you only stand to make more money because the value of these homes is going to increase for the people who can't afford them. Now, if we peg it to the sales, you're totally right that if we don't have a great market, we're going to be bringing in less income. But if we have a market where we're selling a lot of homes, it also means we'll be bringing in more income and building more homes. And so it'll move together, whereas the proposal to just wait means nothing. And I understand that you support using more of the current money, but I struggle to see, to my colleague's point, how using more of the current money and adding more money through this new tax wouldn't help us build more than just using more of the current money.
I don't think it's been well thought out, to be honest with you, in terms of the overall impact. I think it would be, if it was a two-phase approach where we see what kind of change we have with the funds that are already being collected prior to requesting an additional tax would be prudent, in our opinion.
Thank you, Senator Acosta. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Senator DiPalma.
Thank you, Chairman. Phil, thank you for your testimony. You raised some good points, but as Senator 70 points out, we have to put this in a perspective, right? You always have to not make it personal, but personalize it to see what does it really mean in real numbers. And I'm not sure if you were on before or heard the testimony of the committee before, when I brought up the notion of the cost of what you and I and everyone else in Rhode Island are going to pay for that $65 million that we're going to go borrow. And we're going to pay upwards of an additional, I'll say, not quite $40 million, but $39,363. It's almost $40 million to borrow $65 million. The issue right now, we have a crisis of housing. We need to address it post-haste, given the challenges we have in the state. I can understand and appreciate your concern with regards to, well, if it's there now, the 500,000 number may go lower. Well, we can't necessarily look at what might happen. It could also go higher. It could say, you know what, we don't need the 500,000, let's make it 600,000 now. But what we've seen in Rhode Island with the folks from the urban core and other areas wanting to acquire property in Rhode Island, things aren't even on the market before they're sold. So the challenges we're seeing, and I understand and appreciate what you do on a day-by-day basis, and from a realtor's perspective, we also got to look at it with regards to the other side. We have a pressing need. We are in a crisis. We have a pressing need. The way we typically have done this is go to borrow money on a very regular basis, for the most part, still a regular basis. If 229 does move forward, we will supplant what was 1 time to now 3 times that amount, because we go from 30 cents to 90 cents. We are taking money out of the general fund. So in this case here, if it was $6 million and it would go to 18, we'd be taking $12 million of the general fund to go towards housing. That moves it down as well. But we need to, if we have a crisis here, we need a way to fund this, and we need a long-term solution for doing that. So thank you for your testimony. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator DiPalma. Are there any other questions or comment for Philip? Hearing none. Philip, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you.
Next to testify this evening is Amy Reynon with Rhode Island Housing, testifying on Senate Bill 365 in support. Amy, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify this evening. My name is Amy Reynon. I am testifying on behalf of Rhode Island Housing. First, I would like to thank Senator Coleman and Senator DiPalma for their sponsorship of Senate Bills 229 and 365. RI Housing strongly supports the establishment of a dedicated funding stream. As you know and have heard this evening, Rhode Island has faced a serious shortage of affordable housing, and housing production of all kinds remains at historically low levels in the state. That lack of supply is translating into higher prices, a lower inventory of homes for sale, and tight vacancy rates. Investing in a healthy, secure, affordable housing is more important now than it's ever been. Currently, Rhode Island is the only state in New England that does not have a permanent funding stream for housing production. As you've heard, instead we've relied on housing bonds, such as the one that was approved by voters earlier this week, which is fantastic, and we certainly support appreciate the support that this committee and the General Assembly as a whole has provided for those bonds. However, even considering the funding that's provided through these past bonds, Rhode Island invests far less in housing per capita than our neighboring states. And that investment level can fluctuate significantly from year to year, depending on if that bond funding runs out before another bond is able to be passed. to build capacity to increase housing production, we need a reliable funding source that can support a higher level of development activity. The two bills before you take a different approaches to the financing, as you've heard. One would take a portion of the real estate transfer tax that's currently going to the general fund. Another creates a tiered tax system and taxes that higher value to create a dedicated funding stream for housing production. We're very flexible about which approach the committee and the General Assembly feels is best. It's really the most important thing is creating that long-term sustainable source so that we can actually build the capacity of developers within the state to create more affordable housing. You've heard from a number of the folks testifying, and Rhode Island Housing shares the concern around some of the language currently in the bill. Appreciate Senator DiPalma and Senator Coleman's commitment to changing some of the drafting errors that were included in the bills as they stand right now. In addition to that, we do have some concerns around the language around the apprenticeship programs. Currently, the majority of developers who participate in the development of affordable housing don't have those kinds of programs in place. And our biggest concern is increasing the number of workers, increasing the capacity in the residential construction field, which absolutely needs to happen. And we're very happy to be a part of that conversation. However, we also need to make sure that any language in the bill doesn't hamstring our current affordable housing developers or potentially drive business to larger or out-of-state firms, which we are concerned the language is currently drafted may do. I'm more than happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you so much, Amy. Are there any questions or comments for members of the committee? Hearing none. Amy, thank you so much for testifying this evening.
Thank you.
Next to testify this evening is Brenda Clement from Housing Works RI, testifying in support of Senate Bill 365. Brenda, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak this evening. So I'm here in support of both of the conveyance tax bills that are before you, and thank the bill sponsors, Senator Coleman and Senator DiPalma. Hopefully, I'm Brenda Clement, I'm Director of Housing Works Rhode Island, and we're a research and policy organization that looks at all things housing in the state. Hopefully, you've seen our annual fact book that we release and send each year. And again, as previous speakers have pointed out, housing and the need for more housing is not a new problem in Rhode Island. In fact, more than a third of our households are cost burdened. They're spending more than a third of their income towards housing. So building more housing is simply what needs to happen. We know that is a critical piece of the puzzle here that we just have simply not been doing enough of. Most of Rhode Island, the biggest building boom actually occurred during the 1940s through the late 70s when we built about 43% of our total units. Since 2000, we have only built about 8% of units overall, and that includes units of all income ranges as well. We are just simply not building enough units to meet current demand, but also to be able to grow economically as a state. Our fact book points out many troubling statistics. Nowhere in the state can you afford to rent if you're earning the median renter income of $34,000, and in only one community can you affordably buy if you're earning the median household income of $63,000. So investment and providing a regular, steady stream of funding and money for housing production is critical for our economic growth. And as we also show repeatedly in our fact book, we are woefully behind our colleagues in other states as well, too, in terms of our investment into housing. And we see on a regular basis the the impact on local markets that Massachusetts and Connecticut have on our housing prices as well. Even with the housing bond that voters approved, we are still dead last in New England in terms of our per capita investment. So this is not a new topic, as we said, and we very much appreciate the bill sponsors for continuing to raise this issue, but urge the committee, and we do share some of the concerns that some of our colleagues have raised about some of the other language in some of the bills as well too, but remain committed to working with everyone to address those concerns and to get a dedicated funding stream in our state budget. We've said it already, or other speakers have said it, but just a reminder to us all that it's never been more evident in this global pandemic that home is the foundation of our health, economic, and community well-being. And we look forward to working with you to make sure that Rhode Island is a place where all residents are able to live in safe, healthy, affordable homes and thriving communities. As always, I'm happy to work with you and also to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none, Brenda, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That concludes our testimony on both.
Senator Pearson, can I make a comment?
Sure, certainly.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I had to drive to get my daughter. So I just want to say to Brenda, thank you so much for all the work that you do, especially when it comes to the data and the advocacy. I'd like to mention also that Brenda actually was my mentor when I was in the city council. So I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you do, and thank you for all the hard work, and we really appreciate you coming today to testify.
Thank you so much, Senator Cano. That does conclude our testimony on Senate Bill 229 and Senate Bill 365. Senator DiPalma, do you have a motion on Senate Bill 229?
Motion to hold. Yes.
Senator DiPalma makes a motion to hold Senate Bill 229, seconded by Senator 70. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta. Senator Cano. Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator Cano, yes. Senator Chacon, yes. Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator 70. Senator 70, yes. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold Senate Bill 229. Senator DiPalma, do you have a motion on Senate Bill 365?
Motion to hold.
Senator DiPalma moves to hold Senate Bill 365, seconded by Senator Sosnowski. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator 70. Senator 70, yes. Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold Senate Bill 365. Senator Coleman, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Next on our agenda this evening is going to be Senate Bill 162 by Senator Felag, an act relating to the state affairs and government, home community care services to the elderly. Senator Felag.
Thank you very much, Senate President, Chairman.
I'll take the promotion, Mr. Chairman.
I had a lot of momentum going, and then you,
I second that.
then you stalled me, so now I'm going to have to get back the momentum. Basically, this act would extend the eligibility of the Home Community Service Act, and what it would do is it would allow eligibility for those individuals that are under 65 that have Alzheimer or a dementia-related health issue that is confirmed by a licensed physician. It would also allow those individuals that are above 65 who meet the threshold to be and not have the threshold of eligibility for Medicaid to be eligible for this particular program. And what it basically does is the criteria for this home community services to the elderly, as it currently exists for a single person, it's the federal poverty level, which is $25,000 basically, and around $34,000-$35,000 for a married couple. The increase to $250,000 is very slight. It increases the single to around $32,000 and the married couple to $43,000, which again is very low. But what we need to do here is to promote this service to these individuals to afford them that opportunity. So with that, I know there's a number of witnesses that want to testify on the behalf and could better answer all the pertinent questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Senator Felag. Any questions or comments from the committee for Senator Felag? Senator Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator Felag, thank you for this. This seems great. I just have a question regarding whether we know how many people this would impact. So how many folks would this change support? You're muted, Senator. I can't hear you.
Sorry, probably about an additional 430 people would be served by the expansion of this particular program, but maybe the people that are testifying would know for certain, but that's my estimate.
Thank you, Senator Felag and Senator Acosta. Any other questions for Senator Felag? Hearing none. The first person to testify this evening is Maureen Migret with Long-Term Care Coordinating Council, Aging and Community Subcommittee, support of Senate Bill 162. Maureen, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to testify on this legislation, Chairman and members of the Finance Committee. I want to thank Senator Felag for introducing the legislation. He's been very persistent. This legislation was introduced last year. I think you all know that most folks want to stay at home when they need help with personal care and other activities of daily living. And what this bill would do would really help more persons to be able to do so. As Senator Felag said, it would increase the income eligibility from 200% of the poverty level to 250% of the poverty level and allow people under age 65 who have Alzheimer's disease and related dementias to participate. What the program does is provide home care and/or adult day services and some case management to qualified clients. The client pays a cost share and the state pays a share. It really helps what we call the forgotten middle, because these people are not poor enough to be on Medicaid with its very strict income guidelines. I think you all know that to be on Medicaid, you can't have assets more than $4,000 for a single person and $6,000 for a couple. That modest income makes it a real challenge to afford private home care at $25 to $27 an hour, or adult day services at $80 a day at a private rate. I wanted to point out that 1 out of 3 Rhode Island older households have incomes less than $30,000, so paying for home care is a real challenge, to say the least. I think you know the COVID pandemic has caused us to take a look at how we provide long-term care in Rhode Island. We've relied heavily on nursing homes. Over 1/2 of deaths in Rhode Island have been among nursing home residents. That's not to say it's because of poor care, but it's because how they're structured. Public bathrooms are shared, 2 people to a room. Infection control is really hard. Expanding this program will give more families options to help loved ones stay safely at home. It's really a good investment, delaying or avoiding nursing home placement, when this program has an average cost for those on home care of $2,200 versus $1,000 in state costs for nursing home care. We could serve 14 people on this program for the cost of one person in a nursing home. I really appreciate the opportunity to testify. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee?
Chairman?
Senator DiPalma.
Thank you, Chairman. Maureen, thank you for testifying. I always say to folks when, it's like the E.F. Hutton, when Maureen speaks, everybody listens. Given your role on the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council, your previous role as Director of Elderly Affairs, your Policy Director role in the Lieutenant Governor's Office, and your equal role, more important or equally important, your role in the Rhode Island House of Representatives for 10 years. You certainly have seen it from many different facets. You continue to focus on the effort, and so thanks for your continued commitment and what you do for elderly and age-friendly in Rhode Island. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator DiPalma.
Thank you, Senator DiPalma. I really appreciate those kind words. I should have said that I'm here on behalf of the Aging and Community Subcommittee of the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council. And I also wanted to add that I did send in written testimony for Senator Feelag's bill on the home modification program.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions or comments, Senator Feelag?
Yes, I want to thank Maureen for assisting me in this process. And Senator Acosta had a question relative to how many more people, and I estimated around 425, something in that nature. Is that sound pretty well?
Yes, that is correct. It was 425, 430.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Are there any other questions for Maureen? Hearing none, Maureen, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you. Next to testify this evening is Jim Nyberg from Leading Age, Rhode Island, testifying in support of Senate Bill 162. Jim, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, as well as members of the committee, and thank you to Senator Feelag for introducing this bill. Want me to proceed? I'll be brief.
Please proceed.
Okay. So Leading Age Rhode Island, we represent adult day centers and other long-term care providers, and we appreciate this opportunity to express our strong support for this bill to expand eligibility for the at-home cost share program, formerly known as a copay program. It's a well-established and proven program that helps individuals remain safe in the community and delay or avoid nursing home placement. The modest expansion that is proposed, which has been approved by CMS under 1115 waiver since 2013, is really ready to go. It would help more individuals access important adult day and home care services and contribute to our collective goal of rebalancing our long-term care system. And these will have an immediate impact on expanding our home and community-based service system. Quite frankly, like I said, this program expansion has been in limbo for 9 years, while the state has tried various other efforts to rebalance our long-term care system. But this is one move that we can make that we know works, it can be implemented right away, and it will benefit our families, our caregivers, and help them remain in the community longer. So thank you for consideration of this issue, and we respectfully request your support for this bill.
Thank you so much, Jim. Is there any questions or comments from the committee for Jim? Hearing none, Jim, thank you so much for your testimony this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next to testify this evening is Rick McAuliffe, representing Leading Age of Rhode Island, in support of Senate Bill 162. Rick, welcome to Senate Finance.
Hello?
Welcome to Senate Finance, Rick.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate your time and members of the committee for being here tonight. I know you have a busy agenda, and I'll be pretty quick. I know Jim just spoke, but let me just speak in support of this. We represent Leading Age, which is the long-term care continuum of the nonprofit side. So independent housing, which is senior housing, assisted living, adult day services, and nursing homes. We represent the whole continuum of care. Just a quick background on this bill, and I want to thank Senator Felak for sponsoring it. Back in 2013, the Department of Health and Human Services, now EOHHS, actually supported this and wrote rules and regulations to allow people under 65 that have dementia and or early stages of Alzheimer's to participate in the copay program, and also to go from the 250% of the poverty level to 200. So this was something that they were ready to go forward on, but then they realized that they needed legislative approval for this, and that's what we're asking for today. This is now 8 years since the EOHHS promulgated rules and regulations on this. You're probably wondering how much the fiscal note is. Last time we had talked and checked, the fiscal note for the state was about $576,000 to implement this program. It's about $65 a day for someone to go on this copay program, and their copayment is about $15, $25 the federal government matches and $25 the state matches, and then obviously the individual pays the other $15. So we're asking that you consider this for people that are under 65 that have dementia or Alzheimer's. As Jim mentioned, it's a lot more cost effective for the state to have someone independently living coming to an adult day center during the day rather than being in a nursing home under that care. So for those reasons, we ask for your support for this bill so we can move forward and get those people at that level, at 250% poverty level, and people under 65 with dementia, serious dementia and or Alzheimer's to participate in this program.
Thank you so much, Rick, for your testimony. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee for Rick? Hearing none. Rick, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Have a nice night.
You too. Next to testify this evening is Jessica Goslin with the Cornerstone Adult Day Services in support of Senate Bill 162. Jessica, welcome to Senate Finance.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the chairperson and members of the Finance Committee for the opportunity to speak today and to advocate for the passage of this legislation to expand eligibility for the at-home cost share program. My name is Jessica Goslin. I'm the director of Cornerstone Adult Day Services. Our mission is to help families keep their loved ones at home by providing care and support during the day in a safe, secure, and nurturing environment. The eligibility expansions proposed in this bill would have a significant impact on those we serve and those who are desperately seeking to obtain our services. Alzheimer's disease and other dementia-related disorders don't follow age guidelines for eligibility. Those diagnosed with early onset dementia can have significant needs well before their 65th birthday. Their caregivers need these services in order to keep their loved one at home and to slow the progression of this awful disease. Oftentimes, people are forced into looking at higher levels of care, such as nursing homes, when, if they had access to the appropriate community-based services, they could remain in the home longer. And we also know that nursing home care is far more expensive for the state and should really be the last resort for families. We can do better. We also need to reduce the financial burden on caregivers by expanding eligibility for individuals with incomes up to 250% of the poverty level. This will allow many more Rhode Islanders access to services like Adult Day, which in my experience is sorely underutilized despite the tremendous impact it has had on the lives of seniors and their caregivers. And in the wake of COVID-19 and the devastating impact it had on nursing homes, residents, and families, shouldn't we take the opportunity now to ensure more people have access to this level of care? The current guidelines leave too many Rhode Islanders ineligible, and we can do better. In conclusion, I'd like to share a story about a caregiver who recently contacted us looking for services. This gentleman is in his late 60s with significant medical conditions, resulting in the inability to stay home alone. He's had numerous falls and nearly injured himself on more than one occasion. His wife needs to work full-time, however, in order to maintain medical benefits for herself and her husband, which makes her ineligible for the cost share program. Instead, this couple's 19-year-old grandson, who attends one of Rhode Island's universities virtually from their home, stays there to help care for him. And while attending school in their basement, he comes up every 2 to 3 hours to toilet his grandfather. An amazing young man, and I could not agree with you more, but I really think we could do better. I think this family deserves better. And if you pass and increase the eligibility for families like this, more Rhode Islanders can obtain adult day services, preserve their quality of life, and the relationships with those they love. I thank you for your time and your consideration, and for also believing we can do better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for your testimony this evening. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Hearing none. Jessica, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That concludes our testimony this evening on Senate Bill 162. Senator Feelag, do you have a motion?
Motion to hold for further study.
Senator Feelag makes a motion to hold Senate Bill 162, seconded by Senator Sosnowski. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta. Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Feelag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold Senate Bill 162. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 294 by Senator Chacon, an act related to taxation, tax amnesty. Senator Chacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I know it's getting late. I know you want to go home. So I did receive an email from the tax administrator, Nina Savage, today that they took no position on the bill as of yet, and she wants to work some language out with me. What we're trying to do with the bill is we did a tax amnesty, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, where it brought money into the state that would never have been collected due to the pandemic and what has taken place with people not being able to afford much. I decided to do another amnesty. And with that, I'll make a motion to hold the bill until I get the language from Nina Savage.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. And so motion by Senator Chacon, seconded by Senator DiPalma to hold Senate Bill 294. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Feelag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold Senate Bill 294. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 363 by Senator Murray, an act relating to taxation, North Smithfield, historic residence tax credit. Senator Paolino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues on the committee. This bill would simply allow North Smithfield residents, this bill would allow North Smithfield historic residence owners to become eligible for state historic residence tax credits. It's got the full support of the town council. There's a mirror bill in the House, and it's got my support via this testimony as well as my name on the bill. I know it's not listed here on the agenda, but if you click on the link, my name should be added there. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Paolino. We do have a resolution from the town of North Smithfield supporting the legislation. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Paolino, do you have a motion?
Yes, at this time, I'm going to ask that we hold Senate Bill 363.
Senator Paolino moves to hold Senate Bill 363, seconded by Senator DiPalma. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta. Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Feelag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 374, an act authorizing the town of South Kingstown to issue not to exceed $85 million in general obligation bonds, notes, and other evidences of indebtedness to finance the construction, renovation, improvement, alteration, repair, landscaping, furnishing, and equipping of schools and school facilities throughout the town. Senator Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill has, I have a town council resolution, and the town council asked me to put this bill forward so this can be passed and then have the opportunity to go before the voters for a referendum, possibly in May. And if there's any questions, I would endeavor to answer.
Thank you, Senator Sosnowski. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee for Senator Sosnowski? Hearing none. Senator Sosnowski, do you have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move passage.
Senator Sosnowski moves passage, second by Senator DiPalma. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta.
Yes.
Senator Cano. Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Cano, yes. Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That bill will move to the floor. Next on our agenda this evening is Senate Bill 375 by Senator De La Cruz, an act related to taxation, property subject to taxation. This act would authorize fire districts to provide for an exemption from fire taxes for volunteer firefighters. Senator De La Cruz was not able to join us this evening, and there are no witnesses to testify. Is there a motion? Senator DiPalma makes a motion to hold, second by Senator Seveny. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Senator Acosta. Senator Acosta, yes. Senator Cano.
Yes.
Senator Chacon.
Yes.
Senator DiPalma.
Yes.
Senator Felag.
Yes.
Senator Paolino.
Yes.
Chairman Pearson.
Yes.
Senator Seveny.
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We will hold Senate Bill 375. That concludes our business this evening. Is there a motion from the committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Senator Chacon, seconded by Senator Seveny and Senator Paolino. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.
Well done.